Good evening, everyone. Here we have yet another brilliant BBFC versus MPAA podcast that we have available that we kind of decided at the last minute before we're going to do the Christmas one in the next few weeks. Here we have Bobatron or Rob Bannister as usual, and me, Skinny E Media, or Mark, as anyone asks. How do you do?
I'm fine. I am as right as rain as ever. How are you today, Mark?
Well, I'm all right myself. I know last time I was feeling a little under the weather. You know, it catches up with you when you're on a plane. You start feeling groggy, but all right as rain now. Um, I guess in the case of talking about streaming services, really, it's kind of been a relatively new phenomenon. I know the Netflix has been used to the algorithm system, which has been a bit controversial among us BBFC nerds like us. So that sometimes the BBC has to self-audit or audit on behalf of Netflix to see if they got the ratings right. Sometimes the terms they use, like injury detail, violence, they can be a bit of vague. But
Yeah, it can be. I did notice a few things they'd been uh sorry that had been rated on Netflix. I think, does that really warrant that rating? So I was wondering if it would warrant the 18 that was given and everything. And of course, I'm wondering if Grey Man warranted its 15. I haven't watched the film, but like it was only rated PG-13 in America, and it didn't look like would do anything that would warrant a higher rating over here. So, but other than that, I mean, I suppose a few mishaps are going to happen along the way somewhere.
I mean, no one's perfect, really, not even the censors. They've got some wrong on so many levels that we've discussed it ad infinitum on previous podcasts. Worship that
Well, yeah,
one, Jaws, but
yes. W-
those came out around a time where people still went to the cinema to watch movies, not watching at the home on video or DVD, that sort of thing. But
Well, cinema's still a thing nowadays, but yeah, it has gone down a bit in recent years because there's just too many options, and of course, the time between something being at cinema and being on one of the many streaming services is, of course, a lot lower. Is a lot
well,
shorter,
it
even.
used to be about 3 months or even 6 months that a film would come out from cinema to DVD or Blu-ray. Now it could come out within a matter of a month or two, month and a
I
half,
got
45-day window.
Don't get me started when it first gets aired on bloody regular TV. I swear, on average, it would take about 3 years for a movie to first get aired on terrestrial TV after being released at cinema. Like if Jurassic Park wasn't aired on TV until 1996 at the earliest.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's what happened with The Mask. I think I saw it back in '98 or something. It was over in somewhere near Hertfordshire, like Bushy or Watford. That's how I remember seeing that because I wasn't going to the cinema in '94. I was going to the cinema in '96.
But you'd have been
So,
very young.
well, I'm a bit ashamed about my age. I wish I was old as you, but yeah, that the fact is the first films I saw in the cinema were
I don't.
'96.
Well, if you want to get older, just do what most people do. Wait a while.
Well, I suppose so. Well, that's a little beside the point there, but yeah. As far as streaming services are concerned, I don't know. It's a bit of a open world out there. I know Netflix tends to dominate the conversation a little bit more than some of the others, because they were kind of the first ones to do the whole flicks and chill or binge watching
A lot of people are saying that
terminology they
Disney.
use.
A lot of people are saying Disney Plus is giving them a bit of competition, but no, I think that Netflix is still holding its own. Oh, well, first things, I suppose, before we go any further into it. So, Mark, what streaming services are you subscribed to?
Well, for me, I don't really use them that much. If anything, I will often use all four, and then also YouTube. So, in other words, I
Okay,
must use the free services. I know YouTube is kind of put in the same camp as those, but if you start showing shows like Cobra Kai and YouTube originals, then you're considered a streaming service. It's the OG, if you think about it.
oh yeah, kind of is. I mean, I watch loads of the stuff on YouTube, and so sometimes I can absorb an entire evening just watching shit on YouTube.
Well, also because some of
Yeah.
the shows and movies that I used to love so much, I don't know if this is legal or illegal, but many of users post them on the channels, and that's how I get to revisit favorites of mine from my past on there. Um, for some reason, they managed to put Dexter's Laboratory's Ego Trip and the whole and quite a few animes I usually talk about to infinity on here on YouTube for free. I don't know if this is illegal because there's copyright laws involved, and also maybe the copyright expired. So that's how I usually get my entertainment nowadays. I don't really care for spending 10 quid on watching Stranger Things or Umbrella Academy.
Well, suppose it's a bit of a bummer. I find that 'cause I'm subscribed to quite a few streaming services. I'm on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, and I'm also on some anime ones, both Crunchyroll and Funimation. And I think that's about it, actually. Oh no, and I've got Now TV as well.
Oh, wait, that's
But
from Sky, isn't it? Now.
more or less, yeah, pretty much, yes.
Okay. Oh, blimey. Yeah, you subscribe to a lot more than I do. I must
Yeah.
just use the free services so I can get my little nostalgia fix, as
Well,
far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I bet they show a lot of Simpsons on. Oh no, wait, they show it on Disney Plus. My bad.
oh yeah, Disney Plus is where you want go to get your Simpsons fix and everything. Although I don't bother. You also get your Family Guy, Futurama, or basically all the Fox stuff. You know, it's on there. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've got that. Netflix kind of annoys me in a sense it doesn't let me pay an annual fee, but other than that, but it's not worth ending it for. Of course, Amazon Prime has little micro channels as well, which you can pay subscribe to as well for a monthly fee, like Shudder and Film 4, I think, and BritBox as well, and well, countless others. Stars as well. I think that was one, so I can watch Doom Patrol on that.
I know Stars, that's a popular service in the US. It kind of competes with HBO and Showtime. They aired Vida, which is a show I like mainly because I like the women in it. They're quite fit. It's 18 certificate, in case anyone asks. Very raunchy. But yeah,
Wait, what? Doom Patrol? You said?
no, it's called Vida. It means life.
Oh, I did. Oh,
Espanol.
I haven't watched that. Um, yeah, I mean, sometimes they can get yeah, and if we're talking about film ratings and everything, obviously one of the great things is that streaming isn't covered by the stipulations of the Video Recordings Act. So of course, yeah, they're not sorry, what was I going to say? It's yeah, while they do like to use BBFC age ratings, or some just use their own, then they're not obligated to, and they're certainly not obligated to abide by BBFC cuts, as I've learnt that the fun way. I mean, I first saw the that Equalizer with Denzel Washington movie on there a few years back. Still kept a 15 rating, even though it had all the removed footage back in there.
Yeah, that's a little bizarre, I would say, because I know what the scenes you're talking about with the garroting and the man being stabbed by a corkscrew. The sequel even had a scene where you see a man's intestines exposed after a stabbing, which
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
guessing.
I saw the sequel at the cinema, which was of course heavily cut for its 15, and so I would have missed a lot of that. Uh, as to why it was cut, because I watched the cutting edge episode on it. I was like, yeah, I can sort of see why, because it's not like it was particularly overly violent. It's more just the tone of it. It did take a sort of sadistic bent, which didn't really seem in character for his character. But that's not really here to talk about. I mean, I can because, like I say, cuts at the theatrical level or on the physical media level, if ever required, won't necessarily be transferred over to streaming, and I can find that to be a good thing.
Well, you know, it opens more people into the international versions that may have been submitted for consideration. But there can be a bit of an overlap because sometimes you will get US versions, sometimes that may be censored, or they might have put a few things in there just to
Like
try
Die
to
Hard,
appeal it
yeah, like Die
to.
Hard 4.
Wait, they censored that?
Die Hard 4, yeah, because they cut it down to get a PG 13 rating.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking of Die Hard with a Vengeance because I know that was censored by BBFC. Die Hard 4.0, Live Free or Die Hard. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Where he's almost like shoots the man in the arm. He says, "Yippee mother!" And you
and the
don't
joke,
actually hear him the F.
yeah, and the joke of the matter is, it was still rated 15 over here. And of course, the fully uncut version, which would have been R rated, was also rated 15. So the cuts were completely superfluous over here.
No, I was there when it came out. I thought that was a little bit bizarre because when I was still in England at the time, I thought, oh, it must be R rated because all the Die Hard films are, restricted. But I was wrong. When I went on holiday, or something like that, I saw it was PG-13 at the cinema over in Los Angeles. I was like, I don't get it. I don't know. I was still under the weird assumption that pretty much any film that was a 15 would automatically be at least like an R. I even thought that was the Dead or Alive movie that came out. I thought it
Oh
was
god,
sort of
that's
mostly
annoying.
R-rated film, but it actually was. It was PG-13, even though it looked kind of FHM, kind of smutty. But that's another
Yeah,
story.
and it's still rated 15 over here. So again, bit of a slap in the face to us, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird area. My experience with streaming services are sort of neither here or there. That's kind of one of the reasons why I told you to speak upon it a little bit more than I would. But I do remember one of my earliest memories with the Netflix service is, weirdly enough, Nymphomaniac. They had it. I was at university in abroad. They had it, and I was quite surprised they even aired it on US Netflix, uncut. I was taken aback by it because of the explicit sexual scenes and nudity and unsubmitted penetration and fetishes. It was, let's just say, I'll put it this way to my mate who actually um, allowed me to watch it on his computer. I'm sorry. I hope you don't kill me or arrest me for watching porn masquerading as a hardcore
I
sex
rate it,
movie.
dude. Seriously, I mean, no, you're not going to get arrested for that, okay? I mean, what? Why the fuck would you get? Pardon me. In what universe is that illegal? Well, apart from like
Well,
the kind of
in
places
my
outside the forest.
paranoid imagination, I always assume that someone is going to get me at any point in time simply for even watching a film that's been so controversial. I even had to feel like I was covering my face when I went to see Natural Born Killers in France or Human Centipede 2. I feel like someone is going to get me. And this is especially true on streaming services and YouTube because the government can track everything you watch, even if you use a VPN, which I had to do, use a VPN on legal services just to watch those said things in question.
Wow, fuck me.
You know how
Uh,
I am.
yeah. I, for one, have been using streaming services well, probably about 10 years now. I have to admit, I was quite late to them. I mean, I was still going to Blockbuster to rent films as recently as 2012. And it's only when I saw that episode of South Park where Randy buys an episode of Blockbuster and everyone just basically just rags on him for it, for just being stuck in the past and not moving with the modern times, that I realized, oh, because I just got myself like a Blockbuster pass for the local one in Cardiff recently that year. Then I just realized, all right, you just do it on online. Then I started buying things on PlayStation Plus, and then I just to subscribe to Netflix and to, well, Love Film as it was back then, but now Amazon Prime. And of course, just the simplicity of it all is what makes it so easier. It's like, right, I can just watch the damn thing and then just switch it off. I was a bit miffed recently when they took Bottom off Netflix. And I realized, oh, I can't watch that anymore. But I'm thinking that back in my mind, Rob, you've got all three series on DVD in your house. You can watch them anytime you want. It's like, yeah, but I've got to go to the shelf, pick them up, take them to my PlayStation where I play them on, uh, take out one of the discs in there, put that disc in there, then I've got to like get through it. It's just wow. It just streaming has been so convenient that the mere act of getting a DVD to put on is just too much effort. In fact, recently I because I couldn't find it on any streaming service, I bought Cowboy Bebop the movie from Amazon because it was like £5, so it's like, what the fuck not?
Oh
And
man,
it's
you
like,
should have just called me because I had it a bit on DVD. You should have
uh,
called me.
I'd rather it on Blu-ray anyway. And I put it on and watched it. It was like, this is the first time I've ever watched something like actually on physical media, and I don't know how long. I mean, the fact that I had to boot up my PS5 to do it rather than just just putting it using the TV, then I had to like go through the menu and I've oh god, it's like, oh god, how do you pause it? Or I've got to get my games controller out rather than just using the TV remote, and it's like, blimey, it's almost like I'm gone back in time and it just devolved technologically somewhat.
Well, actually, that's not really a problem in many ways. I mean, I was going to CEX and HMV, or checks as you call it, and I was, going all nostalgic for the titles that I couldn't find, or, um, because when I was going to all these places, especially in the good old days of 2006 and '07, I wasn't
Hmm.
employed. I
That's the year I finished it. 2006, the year I finished uni.
hey, more power to you. Living your best days. But yeah, I'm still one for physical media, whichever way possible, especially for titles that I'm really a fan of, or it just doesn't feel quite the same if you watch it on streaming services. I just gave it a shot, and because CX, I know that we should be promoting places because that might be a conflict of interest, but I don't really care. You can find the best deals possible for the best titles, and if I had the power, I would get
Well,
all the titles I was told you couldn't watch as a kid or as a teenager again.
well, well, I mean, well, whatever makes you happy, I guess.
Well, I mean,
I mean,
supposedly so. I mean, physical media. I don't use video game consoles myself. I mostly just use the Panasonic system I have at the house. And then the 32-inch that I watch all my stuff on. But I have to be a little bit careful about what I see because some of the stuff is quite controversial. Kind of have to reel a little bit back in on some things. But the thing that makes me think about Netflix, there's three
yeah.
things.
Hmm.
The Stranger Things, which is a show I hate because they rip off Kate Bush. Now they claim the
It's an
fans
homage.
themselves. Now they think they own Kate Bush, even though we were there first, and they ripped off
Never
Elfin
listened
Lee.
to. Well, I never really listened to Kate Bush that much anyway. I mean, although there was also the use of Metallica's Master of Puppets, which did introduce a whole new wave of fans or interest or whole new wave of people, let's just say, to that thrash metal classic.
Well, if whatever gets people interested in songs that you remember, your parents remember, more power to them. But it's just me trying to be funny and slagging off a show that I think for some reason people like to say, "Oh, I know about Kate Bush because of this show," or "I know about Lucy with the horns that kills people with invisible hands because of this show." So that's why I don't like it that much because they think they can co-opt stuff for their own advantage. But
Well, I
what I was
quite
trying to
like it.
say was they had to censor the smoking, at least for later episodes or even retroactively. And then 13 Reasons Why they had to cut out stuff because of the suicide content.
Well, I mean,
And
Disney Plus edited out some a bikini scene or a nudity scene in Splash.
no, that is correct. And they got the TV edit, which is a little bit weird and bizarre, but I guess whatever can get all the parents out there. And this even applies to US Disney Plus too, where Disney and Hulu are separate entities, even though they're from the same company. In Europe and everywhere else, it's all in the same organization, Disney Plus, which is a bit confusing because there's some really adult things on Disney Plus, like Pam and Tommy,
Oh
um,
yeah.
which kind of makes me scratch my head a bit. So I think the American system makes just a little bit more sense in my opinion because it kind of divides the family stuff from the more adult stuff. Maybe that's just me. And then,
Well, I mean, ever since they've got oh God, I can't remember the name of that. I'm just going to look it up right now. We're talking. Oh, we've got 9 minutes left.
oh well, edit it.
Uh, right, I can't remember the name of that channel on Disney Plus that I've just added in. Of course, because of that, now I need to add in
Well, you
my.
thinking of Star?
Yeah, that is it. Yes.
Star,
Yeah,
because
Star. That's it. That's where all the more grown-up stuff on, and of course, because of that, I have to input my PIN and everything because of the more mature content there, which is fine. It's fine. It is nice to be able to watch all this stuff because I got to sit down and watch Die Hard 3 once, where in its original pure form with the "go fuck yourself" instead of "go take a hike," and likes of that. One, of course, example, good example. Realized I can talk. By the way, was American Horror Story?
oh yes, they did have to censor at least like one of the episodes on series one because of suicide.
No,
They did
no,
have
no, no,
13
no, no,
reasons why.
no, Mark. That's what I'm saying. The BBFC decided of a line in the very first episode had to be cut, even though it was 18 rated. The bit where it says they won't better stitch that up had to be cut out. But of course, because it's streaming, it doesn't have to apply to what the BBFC say or do. Who they just left it in. So it's like based. That's so fucking cool. I mean,
Yeah, that is a decision I really don't understand on BBFC's part. If it's verbal, it's not going to have the same kind of bite as if it was visual.
you might you ask the question, why the fuck do you even have the 18 rating if you're just gonna still say that stuff like that can't be in there? Just for God's sake, it's for adults only. Treat them like adults, not like little piss pants who have to be protected from everything.
Well, maybe there's a little bit of ferment in them that still comes to haunt them and says, "Well, you have to censor a few things."
I am fully confident that the ghost of James Furman has been properly exorcised from those offices. I think he was exorcised the moment he finally left that door. Because, fuck me, I just saw it when he left. Like, every last stupid decision he had made was completely undone. Terminator was given a 15, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released, as was Exorcist on video, and nunchucks were allowed to be shown again. It's just like, yeah, fuck you, Jimbo, you American twat. How he lasted 24 years at that organization, I'll never know. But I'm getting a bit outside myself and starting to rant again. But he really does bring out the worst in me, that man. Oh, and it'll be next month. It'll be 20 years since his death.
We might have to even do a podcast on that, but I think you've done one with Tom already about Furman, so that might
Uh,
be a bit deja vu.
no, no, it's okay. I'm happy to retread old ground. Let's face it, I've probably didn't even cover half the things I wanted to cover on that freaking on that man. But
Well,
yeah.
he's a bit of a mystery of his own there. I'm sure had he stayed alive during this decade, because he's hinted at everything will be available on computer, digital services is quite nice. He's just well, a bit weird with his soft-spoken voice and him staring at the camera with his receding hairline.
Mhm.
I'm
Yes.
sorry what I mean. I'm
Have you
thinking
ever
he's trying to
watched that?
woo the woman that way.
Have you ever watched that Ali G interview with him?
Many times I have. I absolutely was in stitches watching him saying, "Oh, why did you ban chocolate orange?"
Clock orange. Yeah,
Just
whatever.
No, yeah, he would be mortified with everything that has passed, not just on physical and home media and the cinema, but also with the streaming services, because now it's not implemented under VRA standards or guidelines. It might even bypass OPA standards as well. But, well, I mean, well, OPA, let's get started on that one. You've heard about Mignon. It's a French film that you probably know as Cuties.
Oh, that one, yes.
Hey.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Oh,
There was quite a lot of controversy surrounding that, but I believe the controversy was mis based on a misunderstanding of the film and the what it was all about.
I was absolutely gobsmacked because I was a bit concerned after all that hoopla because this mostly came from the US side of Netflix. It didn't really gain much traction in France and stuff, but in the US there were even some Republicans that said we're gonna crack down on Netflix and try to do like an inquiry. And I thought, oh no, they're gonna find ways to get rid of all the content on there. They're gonna crack down on Nymphomaniac, hell, Sense8 or Easy or any of these sort of sexually explicit dramas or with extreme violence. I almost thought we're going to go back to the 90s with the culture wars again after Columbine, where they cracked down on video games and start enforcing ID checks at cinemas and game stores. I was a bit unsettled.
Well, yeah, I mean but I think that does go show the difference between the between age ratings in America and age ratings in Britain. It's because in America they're not actually legally binding. But of course, in in Britain they are. I mean, I can't say they always follow through on it. I mean, like I say, you and me we probably bought a few things we were too young to in the past. It's like as long as you gave them enough plausible deniability, they'd look the other way. Um,
Well,
but
actually, there was one time where I bought a copy of SFX and it had an anime DVD on there. That was 15. I was 13 when it happened. Um, I didn't check my ID because I looked quite old for my age. I even had some kind of facial hair on my mustache. So, yeah, I have to confess my sins on this podcast every once in a while. I hope they beat me
I
for it.
don't think you're confessing anything that everyone else isn't somewhat guilty of in the past. I mean, let's face it. I mean, almost it's something everyone tries to do is buy something they're too young to buy while they're growing up.
And it's always the animated works that usually tend to be the sort of death knell for me because it looks like it's for kids or teens, but it's certainly not. And the magazine in question also had bits of nudity in it as well. And let's just say, I got in a bit of trouble for that.
You know that Sylvester Stallone film Samaritan?
Yes, I heard about that. What
Yeah.
did they say?
Have you seen it?
No.
Well, good. It's shit. But anyway, when I saw it, I realized, it said 16 plus on Amazon Prime, obviously using Amazon's own age rating system. So I watched it. And, oh, this is a bit mild for it. Looked it up on IMDb and said, oh, it's PG-13. So I've just been too zealous again. But no, the BBFC did rate it 12. So I mean, it's like, okay, there's a bit of disparity between what the BBFC is rating things and what the streaming services would, but the streaming services they're rating themselves. They're probably going to be stricter just to cover themselves.
No, you're probably right there. Because there's no sort of central oversight committee that's enforced these things. It's almost like they put an algorithm on what is appropriate and what's not. Plus, that caught me a little bit by surprise from what you
Well,
told me because Samaritan's on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime uses actually official BBFC compliance officers to
oh no,
justify their
it is
word.
now used. Yeah, Mark, it is now saying it's 12, but I think it might have been before the BBFC had actually rated it, and so they might have just gave it their own rating to cover themselves for the time being. But it's like, dude, you think you might have had a knee-jerk reaction because the film well, yeah, it's got some horrible stuff in it, but yeah, it is made in the way that fits into the PG-13/12A rating. But think more Dark Knight rather than Enola Holmes or anything. Have you seen Dark Knight yet?
Yes, I've seen both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. I did see the sequel in question No, I'm sorry. The last film in the trilogy, a week after the horrible massacre that occurred in Aurora, Colorado. But yeah, I would imagine Samaritan, being like your standard sort of 12A
Well,
sort of
I wouldn't say complete standard because all the crime drama element sort of pushes it a bit further. But I mean, you've got your fantasy 12s like your Godzilla and your King Kongs, and you've got those Marvel films, and you've also got like the that Enola Holmes that's on Netflix, which are so much more lighthearted. Yeah, this is a slightly darker, grittier one, which probably is a bit more sinister. If it was at the cinema, I wouldn't recommend taking anyone under the age of 10 to see it. Probably wouldn't recommend taking a 10-year-old to see it, to be honest. But
I
uh,
mean, it's got Sly Stallone in it. He's mostly known for doing like Rambo, really, and then the Rocky movies. And well, Rocky used to be a PG, but the Rambo movies can be quite hard edged, especially 4 and 5.
well, I mean, the latest ones have been 18s. The first two were 15s and everything. But yeah, obviously they're all R-rated films, as the Americans would say. So I mean, yeah, those are in it. But I mean, Stallone can do some funny stuff as well. But I'm just saying that sort of film probably want to be a bit careful with. There's probably some quite scary scenes. I was glad that the BBFC, stood steadfast to that and did give it a 12 and not pussed out and gave it a 15 like they might have just done.
I understand there. Sometimes they can see context a little bit with superhero films, but you just reminded me a little bit of something because Disney Plus, this probably didn't get much talk abroad. Um, some of the films are on the family Disney service, like Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night. How on earth can you put 16 plus materials on a family service like that you can show to little Susie and Jim from Lincolnshire?
Well, it is Disney Plus. I mean, I know it's meant to you think kiddish, but there's loads of stuff on there that is also not for not for kids. I mean, I already told you about Die Hard 3 that's on there. All the Die Hard films are on there. And what the fuck else is there?
Well, I'm speaking for
Lethal
the
Weapon.
US Disney Plus, but also it probably applies to the UK one as well because I'm still a little bit scratching my head a little bit about some of the Simpsons episodes, and then also 16 plus shows
Family
like
Guy.
Moon Knight and stuff being on Disney Plus, excluding the Star or Hulu stuff. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, Solar Opposites is on there as well. I mean, that doesn't even try to hide the f bombs and everything. So I think that's why they made it so you now need to put on uh, a pin code for putting a pin code for when you get in, just because there's going to be grown up material in there. Obviously, stuff like Paramount Plus and all the other streaming services, that's just a given anyway. I mean,
I
I
mean,
talk about this, but remember with things like music, comics, books, they can have all sorts of adult material, but there's no rating system for them, is there? The kids can go in as young as 7 and just buy this stuff that's clearly meant for a more mature audience, and no one says a damn thing about it. But for some reason, films, TV, and even video games now have to have rating systems, and it's just why? Let the
well,
parents decide.
in all fairness, most people don't read books. They don't read stuff. They mostly watch the visuals. It's easier and more accessible to people of all classes and ethnicities and economic groups. So that's probably why they have to regulate it a little bit more because they assume that, at least with comic books or the theatre, and even probably music and CDs, if sans parental advisory, you're probably looking at it in passing, or you have to be at least literate or have the time to stand and read Lady Chatterley's Lover and get aroused by all the discussions about oh he touched her cleavage or went down her blouse. There's actually going to be an adaptation yet again of Lady Chatterley's Lover that's coming out on
Yeah, I'd heard
Netflix.
about that.
I'm actually kind of anticipating the shock responses that are going to be coming out, but I guess in an age of 365 Days, which is a pornographic film that aired on Netflix from Poland, and 50 Shades of
Yeah,
Grey from Maniac, it's probably not going to get much hoopla.
well, because that thing wouldn't nowadays. I mean, it was like they had an obscenity trial back in the 60s, and the judge just gobsmacked everyone by saying, "You couldn't imagine your butler or manservant reading this, could you?" To which basically made everyone goes, "What the actual fuck?" And just showed how the people who wanted it banned were just horrendously out of touch with modern society.
Well, yeah, it was a changing time in the 60s. They started liberalizing the abortion laws and homosexuality and the
Well,
whole
that's a
free
reason
love
why.
thing.
Well, that's a reason why it's then that Mary Whitehouse started, flapping her lips about all her stupid shit.
About the degradation of British society. My grandmother would be so proud. And I don't want her hearing this right now because I think she would have a heart attack with the kind of topics I'm discussing. But yeah, it's well, actually, on a side note, Lady Chatterley's Lover. Did you read it in sixth form or comprehensive
I've
college or
we never
university?
we no we never I've never studied that one. We've never studied that. I've never read it.
Clockwork Orange,
Sorry,
because at the
my
school
brother's read
I
it
went
all.
to, I was like 17, and they had Clockwork Orange, weirdly enough, available in the comprehensive or sixth form library. And I was like, most of the students here are 18 or over. They're like 16, 17, right? So I've managed to read Clockwork Orange at 17, and that was probably one of the most dangerous things I have ever done. Netflix has its own enemies a little bit there, but even with the few controversies that they did have, like the Cuties movie and scenes of suicide that they had to remove from 13 Reasons Why, at least for like seasons one or two. I, I'm not an expert on Netflix, so you might have to guide me a little bit on this one. But I hear more people complaining about it, at least in other countries like Turkey and India, where social mores about sex are a lot more restricted than they are here. And I think they removed themselves for the Russian market, obviously because of
Very,
war.
very, very possibly. I mean, yeah, social media streaming services have censored themselves in their own way. I think was it Lilo and Stitch recently has on Disney Plus has censored itself to take something to replace a washing machine with an oven or vice versa.
Oh, yes,
Um,
the UK version, because they thought children would copy and try to go inside a washing machine or dryer.
all right, I thought it was just that was just generally the version all over. I didn't think it was just the UK version. And of course, if you know the film Executive Decision,
Wait, does that have Steven Seagal?
and John Leguizamo, or no, Leguizamo, I think that's his name, and Kurt Russell. Oh, and David Suchet, if you know who he is.
They're probably like action stars from the 90s. I know John Leguizamo because he voices Sid the Sloth on Ice
Yeah.
Age.
Well,
And
he was just in the menu, which I just saw earlier today.
oh yes, he's going to be in the Christmas Violent Night movie as well coming
Yeah.
up, which I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
you'll have plenty to talk about for the next podcast when
And
we
of
do
course,
Christmas.
he was in Super Mario movies, Brothers movie, back in whenever that was released. But yeah, they were in. That's what executive decision is. Basically, it's Die Hard on a plane again. Or was it again? I don't know. One of those Die Hard. Another one of those myriad of Die Hard clones from the 90s. Uh, and of course, the bad guys in this are Islamic terrorists. And but of course, originally when the film came out, they overly did say things like infidel and Islam and jihad and all these various all these various terms. Of course, now they've dubbed them all over with just more generic terms like our enemy and our cause and all that sort of stuff. So they yeah, if you watch it on Disney Plus, which I think it's on, or is it Paramount? I think it's on Disney Plus. Um, yeah, all that's those edits are all completely in there.
Um, Sorry if I do that sometimes. You sometimes see me a bit lost for thoughts when I do that. Sounds like Mr. Bean. But yeah, that sounds like the sort of thing that Joe Rogan or Alex Jones would make a bit of a tizzy about, saying, "Oh, this is going man. This is what Charles was doing. It's the QAnon conspiracy for the demon pedophiles, the Pizzagate." But yes, that might kind of defeat its own purpose because if you look like 10 or 15 years later, they had 24, which I used to watch on Sky One back in the day. That was one of the first 15 certificate shows I saw. And that
Yeah.
show is
Well,
full of sort of dog whistle, Islamophobia, and post 9/11 rhetoric. And it didn't make any sort of beef about they were, trying to target sleeper cells. So it looks a bit stupid in all summary because now, they tried doing that with 24, uh, all these movies that was all post 9/11 because Executive Decision came out before that. It probably came out during the Gulf War.
the
So kind of
1996
just
came
defeats the
out.
whole purpose. So yeah, post Gulf War. So
Yeah, but it was in the 90s. It was before 9/11. So
yeah, that
yeah, so
sounds like a political issue that was probably going on a little bit there between the executives. But even for my left wing progressive minded self, that probably was a little bit silly to remove the instances of that. They didn't even censor any of the violence, so that kind of defeats its own purpose. I
well, no,
think,
it didn't censor violence. Well, no, it didn't censor violence. Obviously, they don't care. I mean, I remember they did say that to get 15 rating over here, few bits of violence were trimmed, but obviously that's now no longer a thing, and they've just completely reinstated that. It's got well, doesn't matter because you're watching it on streaming, and if it's not on a Netflix or Amazon Prime, the BBFC rating won't be on there, so it's not even it's not a thing. See, that's again, brings me back to what I like about streaming services, or just streaming in general. The BBFC have absolutely no jurisdiction there, so I mean, it's got like, hey, cool, you get your grubby censorious hands off my movies and my TV shows. Sure, they're doing it as a gesture of goodwill. Netflix and I think Prime are taking on board BBFC age ratings, but just more just to show that they're you know just
well, I
making
think,
some effort to get the moral guardians off their back. But
well, in all fairness, they probably were doing that because they were, doing for the US market, submitting official MPAA ratings for their films. And because I believe Netflix replaced 20th Century Fox after the Disney buyout as the sixth member of the MPA board, because it's a collection of major corporations and film distributors in the US. So taking their place, so you'll sometimes see Pinocchio rated PG, Blonde rated NC-17, Annihilation rated R, that sort of thing. And that can be a little bit of a grey area, but most people generally don't pay attention to film ratings as far as streaming services are concerned because policing that sort of thing is a bit hard to do when you have your family and stuff in the house. I mean, you could do the parental block thing, but I don't think people do it as much as, let's say, when you go to the cinema, they have to check your ID just before you go see a film. I'm sure if Demon Slayer, the 50 certificate anime, came out exclusively as a Netflix or Crunchyroll exclusive, it probably would have done even better numbers and made more money because it didn't have that age restriction behind its back. And then in the
well,
case,
you watch Crunchyroll or Funimation, and of course, I don't think they even put any age restrictions on there. So I mean, yeah, they you just put that on there. What put that on, and yeah, they'll just even the BBFC have even if they refused a certificate to something, which I believe they did with one of them, Mermaid Valkyrie, I think it's called. I can't quite remember. And
yep,
yeah,
that's it.
that's
Valkyrie Drive
yeah,
Mermaid.
Valkyrie Drive Mermaid. That's it. But that's on Funimation, and you can that's free to watch and everything. I'm probably just hope I'm not giving the game away here or anything, but yeah, you can watch that completely in its entirety on Funimation and probably on Crunchyroll. I don't know. I don't really watch Crunchyroll too much because unfortunately I can't get it on my Samsung TV. It means I have to either boot up my PS5 or I've got to freaking sync it with my phone. It's a bit of a bind. But of course I do watch it to watch what's it Golden Kamuy on because that has it subbed, whereas Funimation only does it dubbed, which I don't like my anime dubbed.
I'm a little bit different in that regard. So I usually didn't like Japanese animation dubbed because I can laugh at some of the accents and little jokes. Sometimes if it's in Japanese, it might be a little bit lost in translation for me. I, I probably have discussed this on the previous podcast as well. So I'm very much a nerd when it comes to adult animation. I often will lump in anime alongside adult animation within that same sort of category. Because let's face it, do you know many PG or U certificate Japanese cartoons? Most of them are 15 or 12 or 18 anyways. There would have been no way I would have been able to see all the titles that I obsess about at 6 years old. And if I did see, let's say, Speedgraph or Elfin Lead at 6 years old, I probably would have been even sent to the mental institution for having post-traumatic stress disorder because that's how disturbing they are. Now, I'm sure you probably heard about Big Mouth being very controversial that they probably want to
Well, I've
ban
watched
the
it.
show because they think it sexualizes. Uh, I'm going to stay away from it.
Well, possibly. I mean, obviously, it's such a goofy-looking cartoon that it could. I don't think anyone could be sexualized in it. I have watched it quite a bit, and of course, it's a Netflix special, so it falls under our streaming topic. Uh, yeah, I mean, I've watched it. I couldn't have noticed the difference in standards because I think it was like the first 2 or 3 seasons, or maybe in 4 seasons, I think, all got away with 15 ratings. And then suddenly, because of BBFC, suddenly said they're going to cut down the quote unquote language of pornography, then the latest seasons are now all rated bloody 18.
And that's
And
even with the auditing process and the algorithm that they're using.
well, yeah, although you can go on the BBFC website and they do actually have those ratings anyway, because yeah, up to season 4, the series was all completely rated 15 without any exceptions. The same with Paradise PD, I think. Then suddenly, I mean, because of BBFC says they're gonna, again, like I said, cut down the language of pornography, it's now rated 18, which of course just an algorithm on Netflix, but I mean, the BBFC website has those ratings on there. Again, Netflix isn't obligated to do it, but I guess they've entered some sort of a business contract with the BBFC, so they're going to be doing it. Not that it makes any odds to us, really, because we can watch it regardless. I
Well,
just don't like the idea of film raters being too zealous. It doesn't. It looks just I always worry it makes them and by us by extension look quite puritanical.
Well, I mean, Britain has always been the most conservative country in Europe when it comes to certain attitudes about things. Such a thing like that would not pass at France because France appreciates cinema and TV much more than us. They treat it as the seventh art, I believe. So they wouldn't be as quite over censorious as, let's say, our Anglophone counterparts who are going to be a little bit Victorian era
Yeah.
instead of
Although
becoming
some of the
a little
European,
less so than our Indian Commonwealth brothers.
some of the European countries come down harder on violence. I mentioned the Dark Knight earlier on. I mean, in places like Denmark, Sweden, Ireland, and I think Germany and Norway, it all got the equivalent of a 15 rating.
No,
So
you're right. Um, I know in some respects, homosexual content is certainly more penalized in countries like Poland and Hungary, especially with the fucking piece of shit prime minister that they have in
they
my
got
yard,
assholes.
where if a film has any sort of queer element, it's automatically banned as 18. My experience with censorship is a little bit weak when it comes to Netflix and Prime. It's more so YouTube that I generally tend to study the most. And the algorithms on YouTube are really bizarre because even on my end, with the videos that I post on there, some of my stuff has been given an 18 plus restriction that at one point in time was not given as such, but at the last minute they said, oh no, you can't even have that being accessible to anyone really, even with a content disclaimer that I sometimes put saying warning, adult themes or disturbing content, like I do with my cinema reels I used to post every once in a while of ads and PIFs with superimposed BBFC ratings, as if you're like watching cinema. They put 18 plus restriction because one of the videos Ava was banned for about a few years until I managed to get an appeals process and get it on there finally after a few months because it's shown decapitations and torture. And this was an ad for Amnesty International. So sometimes they lose the context a little bit because Amnesty International is supporting human rights organizations. But they thought it was exploitative. They thought it was like some sort of ISIS video or something, but it wasn't. It was warning about torture. They banned
Well,
it.
sometimes missing context is well, there's a bottom. Of course, is a fault that a lot of them have. I'll just when what of course they do is well, they've been accused of censorship in a way, but they haven't really not and everything, but they've been accused nonetheless. Of course, was in a lot of films that are, especially on Disney Plus, they do this. Is that if they have if the film's done quite a while back and it's got some rather, and Paramount Plus does it as well, got some outdated attitudes, they'll put that in the content description. Like, say, a film like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Uh, I trust know the film,
Yeah, Mickey
the one I'm
Rooney
referring to.
and Yellowface.
Yeah, fuck me. I mean, yeah, and of course that was film's 60 years old. It's back in a time when America still had racial segregation. Yeah, we're gonna see some racist shit there. I mean, and of course, not and in a more recent film, but still quite old in itself, Aliens. Of course, the was it Jeanette Goldstein or whoever it was playing Vasquez, because Vasquez is Hispanic as a character, but of course the actress playing here was white, a white Jewish woman, but white nonetheless. So she had to put on essentially brown face for it. So of course they it does put like a warning regarding that on Netflix, and they've been getting some flack for that. But to be honest, that's wait, did I say Netflix? I say Disney Plus. Oh no, we get some flack for that by all the chuds, but that's just bullshit claim of censorship. That's just the difference between a content warning and censoring things and trying to stamp on free speech. I mean, that's just kind of weird.
Well, censoring things would be like Innocence of Muslims, which was on YouTube for some time. And that got a lot of controversy to where they led to that whole Benghazi thing. And then a lot of Islamic countries tried to censor or ban YouTube because of that short film, which they deemed was critical of the religion or blasphemous. Exactly my point. But in a case of sort of outdated attitudes, there's nothing necessarily wrong with putting a content disclaimer saying, um, this is what it is. Take it as you will. I mean, I I probably would be a bit cautious about the Breakfast at Tiffany's one because it's very blatant. I didn't know about the aliens one until you just told me right now. And then Dumbo, that was a recent movie that
Well, that does have some rather well, those
had the
we were talking about
crows.
nakedly. We've known those are racist for God knows how long.
Yeah, and then well, even on a lesser level, you got Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? There's a lot of ethnic slurs against indigenous
Peter Pan.
populations and uh, Romani people, Gypsy, they
Yeah,
call
well,
them.
and Peter Pan, they've got that whole uh, "What Makes a Red Man Red" song, which of course, yeah, that doesn't go too well. I mean, one thing he also did in a lot of these streaming services was during back in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests, they took down a lot of stuff they might have thought was a bit they took down older episodes of Little Britain because of the use of blackface in it. And to be fair, blackface isn't funny, so I don't know why people think that they do it. And of course, a lot of people were screaming censorship. It's like, yeah, but it's not. They're a private company. They can do that. If a government was forcing them to do it, it would be censorship. But they weren't, so it's not.
Well, here's where I kind of may get in a little bit of trouble with my left-wing friends in regards to this. I actually found some of the humor in Little Britain and Come Fly With Me, which has similar elements. Funny, even if it does use um, ethnic and racial caricatures and stereotypes. Even Breakfast at Tiffany's, I saw that in the cinema, weirdly enough. We saw it like part of like Seniors Club. I feel I have to confess my sins on this podcast sometimes. I actually laughed at Mickey Rooney um, in Yellowface, and I feel guilty for it because I was naive at the time. And even Apu on The Simpsons, who was voiced by a Jewish guy named Hank Azaria. I feel guilty that I was laughing at him doing the "thank you, come again" thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took so long for that to become so for us to pick on how controversial that was because, I mean, yeah, if it's a white guy doing an Indian accent, that's kind of humor you'd expect from Jim Davidson. Um, and
Well,
do you know who he is?
is he like Roy Chubby Brown? In all fairness, because you said Little Britain, that was on iPlayer, and I was saying about
And BritBox.
like
Oh, yeah,
all
iPlayer's
four
another good
stuff
one.
because they interviewed on Peep Show, and that was one of the episodes involved Jez, Mark's roommate. He
Hmm.
was playing blackface because there was a Canadian, Canadian actress playing as an American who had always fantasized about trying to get like the BBC, which I won't go into detail what that means if you know about porn. And
Oh,
he darkened his skin up just to make it feel like she was dating someone that was not of her own kind. They had to remove that for all four.
well, I mean, if like I've said, private company wants to do that, that's what they're doing. It's not. It's only censorship if the government demands it, and the government didn't. So again, we're not really cry foul, to be honest. I mean, do you have a favorite streaming platform?
It's pretty much YouTube really, and all four. If it's anything Channel 4 related or something that feels to my nostalgia, I can watch all the episodes of Dilbert or Nautica's Bliss Tactics for free. Then be my guest.
Well, well, I guess. Well, I guess you're right. I think I might have.
What about for
I mean,
you? Is it Netflix or Prime Video?
I don't know which one my favorite would be. I guess Netflix is what I watch the most. I just recently, just this evening, finished up watching the latest series of or latest season of Inside Job, and I've still got some more of a Cuphead show to watch. But I've been just getting through all kinds of stuff. I mean, just earlier last week, I on Disney Plus, I watched the final ever episode of Walking Dead. That's something I'll be able to watch recently. I'm so glad that's over with because that had long since run its course. And on Disney Plus, I can watch Family Guy and I can keep up with Simpsons and everything if I want to. I
Like they're
I don't know
ending
if I really
Walking
kind of
Dead.
what
They're ending
what'd you say?
Walking Dead.
Well, it was what it was. I don't really give two shits to be honest. Just glad it's over. Um,
You just made my day because I can't stand that show. It's like Game
well,
of Thrones. It's everyone talks about it. What's so great?
it's we talk about how much we just want it to end because it's run its course. But I don't know if I really have a favorite streaming service. I mean, of course, I can watch South Park on Paramount Plus, but I guess I watch for most stuff on Netflix. I guess Amazon Prime has its benefits too because it can give me a alternate channels to watch. I did say I got BritBox on there as well, so I can watch old episodes of Father Ted and My Hero and everything, and One Foot in the Grave.
Spitting
And
Image is on there too.
oh, sweet.
I love Spitting Image. That's my new favorite show, even though it was a thing in the 80s. Puppets.
But I'm not gonna lie. I am very, very thankful uh, for the invention of streaming. Even though when I first started, I was a bit skeptical towards it because I think, oh wait, I've got to give it my card details. And I think, oh, I don't like the sound of that. But then I realized more people are doing it. Yeah, I'll do it. And then I haven't looked back since. It's like this is so much more convenient than just going to a store, buying DVDs or renting DVDs. And if you rent it, you got to fucking return it, or just buying something on DVDs and maybe watching it once, twice, and
And it
but of course
collects
now I can just
dust in
sit.
your cellar.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now I can just sit in front of a screen, just being for it, see what I want to watch. And yeah, I probably spend far too much time just cycling through or scrolling through everything that's on there, trying to find something to watch. But just the knowledge that it's just there to watch. The same with like music on Amazon streaming or Spotify, which I don't do anymore because I don't want to support it because of Joe Rogan. But it's knowledge that I don't have to go to the store to buy a fucking CD anymore. If there's a song I'm curious about or an album I'm curious about, it's like okay, I'll just download it, and as soon as a new album comes out, it's just cool. I'll just download that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think streaming has been well, the stream has been a godsend, and not just because it's not covered by the stipulations of a Video Recordings Act. Therefore, they can get away with a lot more than they ever could beforehand. Not the BBFC, obviously the BBFC are a lot more chill than they used to be, but yeah, yeah, it's just so much handier. I mean, I don't know how many more. I mean, I guess the older Zoomers may still remember watching things of physical media. Well, yeah, because it's not that long ago. But we're going to get to a point where going to be the youngest of Zoomers, or maybe even Gen Alpha after them, are just going to grow up like not even understand the concept of watching things on physical media because they've always only ever known streaming.
Actually, that's probably the most passionate thing I've ever heard you say in regards to the streaming versus physical media debate. Because for me, it's a little bit. I'm a bit torn on this one. Even though I'm younger than you, I am still quite nostalgic for the days of HMV and Virgin and CEX and Zavi. You go into the stores and browse the sections for all the media that you could find. Unfortunately, on my end, I kind of grew up in a sort of divide between physical and the digital. It wasn't until I was like 18 or 17 that we started getting broadband at the house, and that's when things started changing for me. I started watching more stuff on YouTube, and I was just more like a less a couch potato, which for me was never really a good thing. For me to try to visit all these streaming services like Netflix and Prime and Disney, it would be too risky for me, mainly because I don't I'm kind of cheap, but also I don't really want to have to care about all these Stranger Things and but
You're not obligated to watch the
Limitless.
things that are
Uh,
on. You're not obligated to watch things that are on there, dude. I mean, you only have. I mean, it's just there to watch what you might be interested in. There's lots of things I've checked out to see if I wanted them, and I just thought, nah. I watched one episode, and think, fuck that. I'm not watching any more of that. That can do one. But I guess one of the problems it is with streaming is you're just spoiled for choice. You just don't know what to watch. There's just too much there. I mentioned on a few other of our earlier podcasts how in the past it was a case of there was just what you had to watch was what was either on TV at any given moment, or if you're lucky, got to go to the cinema, but that was a treat, or basically what you may have had on video, either been recorded on from TV at a time, or what had been you just had physically bought on video, which mostly was bought by either your parents or your older siblings. But that did quite limit it. Now I've just got a whole world of entertainment at fingertips, and it's almost like I'm not sure I know what to do with this really. But you know, I mean, at least if it's something I do want to watch, it's there, and it's without the hassle of trying to having to get my hands on it. So, with the exception of Cowboy Bebop, the movie, which I had to buy because no streaming service had it. But yeah. So, like I say, I still think it's a godsend. It's just made everything so much simpler and just freed up my time so much more. So, as someone who can remember all the previous stuff, especially the days of VHS, I know the hassle with that. I have to admit, I'm quite fond of streaming.
I mean, I'm getting on it too. Mainly these days, I just watch a lot of my stuff on YouTube and try to get from there with the YouTube Premium. You can download it onto your phone with your micro SD card. So I mostly have um, I can tell you a list of stuff I've downloaded for the YouTube Premium that I have on my phone. I will just revisit when I'm sad, lonely, and nostalgic. But I think you probably would vomit or get tired of me talking about that, so I'll keep that to a minimum, I suppose. But yeah, it's actually lots of spices to choose from, but you've got to be a little bit careful. It's like having cocaine or too much sweets and alcohol. If you have too much of it, you'll die, or you'll have to go to the hospital. So yeah, you gotta be a bit careful, especially if you're got family and sort of 9 to 6 job on your side. So yeah, that's how I approach it as. But like you said, I do feel a little bit sorry about the Zoomers. You mean Gen Z, right?
Yeah, that's what we call them.
Yeah, Gen Z, like Tom's age.
Yeah,
I feel
97 to 2012
I feel
birthdays.
sorry for him because he never got to experience all the great, interesting things that we got to see, especially when it was on 35mm print, or in a case because we've openly talked about our porn habits, even though we probably shouldn't have. Go into the news agents and seeing on the top section there'll be the Playboys and FHMs, or going into the anime section there'll be a few dodgy titles here
Or
and
you could just watch Channel 5 on Friday night.
oh yes, well maybe that was more your time. I didn't really grow up on that, but yes, that they will
Well,
never
Channel
have
5 only.
that sort of danger in their lives. It's
Well, I
gone.
suppose it does remove a danger and a sort of special feeling of something, like when you own physically own something on video or DVD. But for the simplicity and the convenience of having it, that's something I'm willing to just that's something I'm willing to sacrifice every day. I mean,
Oh,
especially I think it's more cost effective as well.
well, I mean that as well because it used to be back in the days you had to pay about like 20 quid just to get about 4 episodes on DVD, or like 25, or even sometimes even 60 just for a box set. And
Oh yeah.
you know, wages back then, they weren't all that great, and they certainly aren't now. So, yeah, no wonder why nowadays stream a lot of stuff on YouTube or go to checks just to get all my nostalgic goodness and whatnot. I probably shouldn't have gone to checks when I was in Cardiff because now it tempted me to want to buy everything that I was told I shouldn't. Now I want to get it again, like the Darkness OVA series. I won't go into detail about what the Darkness OVA series is, but I'll let you kind of figure that out for yourself. Only 8 quid. Only 8 quid. Oh man.
Yeah.